Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast, driven by Audi. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC defender, Dion Bailey. Dion, so glad to see your face. Happy to have you back on the show. Very excited to have you back, considering I've kind of neglected you. It's been my fault these past 2 weeks. First of all, you were gracious enough to let me go and live my best life at the Beyonce concert last week. And then I got some combination of like altitude sickness / like heat exhaustion in Colorado. And so I texted you out of desperation yesterday. I was like, can we please move our podcast from Sunday to Monday? And of course, you were gracious as always again. So here we are recording on a Monday night. But Dion, like I said, so happy to have you on the show.
Definitely happy to be back, and how could I not let you go live your best life, through the Beyonce thing, and then
thank you.
Everybody has a down day, so just had to let you rest up and recover, and it seems like you're ready to go today.
I'm trying to play through injury, if you will, as they say in football. Don't worry, all to the listeners who have tweeted at me that I need to take more vitamins. My mother has lectured me over the last 24 hours that I need to take better care of myself. I do understand that. This one, I think, was really just the altitude, but we'll see. Hopefully have enough energy to do this podcast, but we have a lot to talk about, Dion, so I think I'll get energized as we keep talking. USC gets a win in Boulder, 48-41. They're now 17 all-time against Colorado, moved to 5-0 on the season. We have a lot to talk about, obviously, Dion, and you were tweeting, you were getting people pumped for this recap episode. I loved it. So I just want to hear your initial thoughts. What were your thoughts as a fan watching it, as you tweeted, and then you put on your former player analysis hat? How did that change at all between the two hats that you wore, if you will?
Definitely, because as a fan, I'm not really looking at it from like an X's and O's, a true like from a football player lens. I'm just looking at it from a fan, just hey, I want to go out and win 100-0 type deal. So as a fan, you kind of felt a little let down that we had the game in a firm grasp, and then they let them make a run at the end and make it appear like the game was close. And obviously that's not what you would like to see, how you wouldn't like to see the game finish that way. But after taking off my fan hat and really diving into the tape, you really see it was really like 4 or 5 plays that really turned into like an avalanche effect, and the defense really couldn't catch their footing again once they got halfway through the third quarter for the remainder of the game. So it's not something to truly hit the panic button on, but it is something we hope that when we come out to Arizona that we definitely see a stronger finish.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like I said, we have a lot to get into, so excited to chat about it with you. Before we do, I just want to have a couple reminders. If you're enjoying the show, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're also simulcasting on the USC Athletics YouTube channel, so if you want to see the video instead of listen to us, you can find us there. And our podcasting schedule is usually Sunday nights and Wednesdays, Sunday nights with Dion Bailey and Wednesdays with Cody Kessler. And if you ever want to get your voice heard, you can look for a tweet or an Instagram question box the day before we record. So look out for that. Love getting all the questions. And we have a lot of questions, obviously, this week, Dion. I always say it, but I'm very glad that our former defender is on the Sunday night episode, because everyone has questions about the defense, and the offense is like, yeah, we know it's good. So very excited excited to break this one down. Alrighty, let's jump into it, Dion. First off, overall, the one benefit I will say of me getting sick and having to record on a Monday was that we heard from head coach Lincoln Riley on Trojans Live, and he gave his analysis after watching the film of Saturday's game. And it was interesting. He kind of had like a mixed review of it, and he did after the game. But I think what mainly stood out to me was that he said we can't get complacent by winning, and we can't get like nitpicky. And so he was like, we're 5-0. Yes, obviously we know there's a lot of things to correct. We are not happy with that performance, but we're still 5-0. We won the game. Like he said that as a inside the locker room type of mindset, you kind of have to block out the noise in the media and come away with the good and the bad, own it all, and improve for the next week. So I was just curious, Dion, as someone who's been in the locker room, what do you take away from Lincoln Riley's statement that I just summarized there?
That's the perfect message that you need to be preaching after a finish to a game like this that you had in a firm grasp and then you let it slip away. You have to keep the main thing, and the main thing is to win. So they were able to come out of Boulder with a win, and wins are hard to come by, especially this year. In our conference is pretty deep. It's not many slouch games as there may have been in the past. So week in and week out, if you're able to survive Saturday with a W, you got to appreciate those wins because they're not easy to come by. So that's a great message to be preaching to some young guys who could be taking on the outside noise a little bit more. Oh, we didn't win by this much. They just got beat by 40 the week before by Oregon. You comparing and contrasting the two games and outcomes and things like that. And it's not about that. I mean, it's all about going 1-0, and they was able to accomplish that. So the main goal is still achievable. So that's all you want to be able to say after every Saturday.
An interesting thing or point that Jordan Moore brought up on Trojans Live was saying that, like, his theory is that part of the reason why fans are upset in a performance like Saturday is because you kind of you don't stay in the moment, and you kind of you look ahead at the schedule and you say, well, this performance wouldn't have been good enough for XY team down the road. But do you feel like that's a fair assessment to have, or do you need to kind of be game by game basis, or at least be in that mindset until we are proven wrong about this team? Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and there's obviously it's okay to be wary of certain aspects or characteristics of our team, certain phases, whether it be special teams or defense. But to really take how you perform versus one opponent and try to foreshadow how you're going to perform against another opponent, it doesn't really work like that because it's all about matchups, and you match up differently with every team. So although it may seem like we were a much better team than Colorado, like their matchups in particular situations, they won their matchups, and obviously we won't match up the same that we matched up against Colorado, against Arizona this week, or Notre Dame the following week. Like every week's going to be different. So that's why I say you got to keep the main thing, and just really try to go 1-0 every week, and not, go from 1-0 to 6-0. It don't work like that. You got to win every week, and every win's going to be different. Yeah.
Another thing that Lincoln Riley was talking about was that he thought it was another case of the team going up early against an opponent and then kind of coming out flat in the second half. And to just give a little behind the scenes into our pre-podcast conversation, Dion, you and I were talking about how I was kind of asking you, like, how does that work as a player where you get up in these games and then you don't come out with the same energy in the second half? How does that really work? I'm just curious from your player perspective.
It's a mental thing, just keeping your foot on the gas pedal and not letting up. And when things seem to be unraveling, you have to be able to rally the troops and hone in, and really it's a whole team effort. When the defense is struggling like that and not able to really get a stop, the offense can help the defense by elongating drives, running the clock, keeping the defense off the field, and the defense can help themselves by not getting penalties on third downs, winning on third down, making a simple play. So I think it all works hand in hand, that there are ways that everyone could have contributed to the outcome being a lot different.
No, that makes sense. Alrighty, I want to dive into each side of the ball in more detail. Before we do, just want to give special thanks to Audi. Performance is more exhilarating on a real road. Introducing the Audi Q5. Visit your SoCal Audi dealers, proud sponsors of the USC Trojans. And you can take your health to the next level with Symbiotica. Their premium, easy-to-take supplements fuel your body with key vitamins and minerals to help you reach peak performance on and off the field. Elevate your health today by going to Symbiotica.com and use code FIGHTON for 15% off site-wide. Alrighty, let's talk about the offense. I thought it was interesting. Brendan Rice had a quote after the game. He said, make sure not to take Caleb Williams for granted. And I feel like Caleb Williams' performance was a little bit of a sidebar of the outcome of Saturday's game, because a lot of fans were talking about USC's defense and whatnot. But the man had 6 touchdowns on Saturday. He tied his own career high. He's the sole player in FBS who has 6 touchdowns in a single game games so far this season. The records are just there. I could go on and on. I think he tied a USC record for most touchdowns. He tied a Cody Kessler record. That's why I remember it. He was one shy of Cody Kessler's record against Colorado. But again, another great performance by Caleb. He did have his first interception of the season. I thought that was interesting. I think that's something that he knew he kind of was trying to get away with. He threw off of his back foot, didn't really get his feet into it. He was kind of laughing when he came off the sideline when he threw that pick. So something where I know that, and Caleb said as much, if he could do it over again, that wouldn't have been a pick. That probably would have been a touchdown. So overall, Dion, I was just curious your thoughts on the offensive performance on Saturday.
The offense, like they do week in and week out, they came out and they put a great performance. They had a great performance on Saturday, and what I would hope that the offense could do a little bit more of is just playing defense on offense. Like, we kind of need them to play defense as well. It sounds weird, but that's just controlling the clock, kind of having a 4-minute offense, even if it's not a 4-minute offense situation. You just got to really have that feel of how your defense is playing and how they are matching up against their opponent. And if they need, a break, need a couple minutes to get some more air in their lungs, even if you are not truly having an effective drive to where you think you may be able to put up points, but you can elongate drives, which helps out the defense, flipping the field and special teams. So I feel like that has to be like the next step for our offense. It's not really always about putting up almost 50 points. I mean, it was 2 points shy of 50 points, having 50 every game this year so far. But yeah, I mean, 50 may not be able to do it. That's why we need to lessen the possessions that the other opposing offenses are getting once our defense, is losing their footing a little bit. So that's my main not concern, but just like hope that the offense really takes that challenge on and takes it upon themselves to play a little bit of defense on offense as well. Yeah.
Jorge wanted to know, why do you think the offense couldn't move the ball in the second half of the game?
It wasn't that they couldn't move the ball. We were pressing. I feel like no one truly had the understanding of the just what am I looking for? No one was reading the room. Nobody saw that it was possible that this can unravel and get out of control. Like, we were just continuing to play how we've been playing the whole game. And our defense wasn't getting stops like they were doing in the first half compared to the second half. So going fast, 3 and outs in a minute or less, like, we got to be able to recognize, like, okay, it's not about putting up points right now. We just got to run the clock and get out of here. Like, we're up by, 3-4 scores. We've done enough. Like, we can't try and get to 60. So I think that was more of the issue. And it's so few of drives now with the running clock. So it may seem like that we weren't able to move the ball, but it's not like we had the ball 10 times in the second half. And we scored 14 points in the second half. So it's it's just kind of Caleb pressing, seeing that the defense is not able to stop them, so he's trying to make the big play. He's trying to put up points, thinking that we may need 7 more, 14 more in order to get out of there with a dub. So I feel like that was more so the case than our offense really putting on that 4-minute hat, trying to run the ball, trying to get the clock going, and Colorado stopping us. That wasn't the case.
It was interesting because Lincoln Riley said after the game that he thought it wasn't the best performance from USC's offensive line. And I kind of had to agree after seeing that in person, especially with some of the rotations that they did in the second half, which is like, it goes back to the chicken or the egg. Like, they put in some of the second team guys at offensive line at certain points, and then you don't get the outcome that you want, but you're up, but then you're not. It's like that whole domino effect. And it was interesting too, because I was talking to some of the players after the game, and they were just talking about, the effects of the altitude, if there are any. And I was just curious, your perspective, Dion. And I was asking Cody about this, and then he got clowned because, quarterbacks don't do too much back there. But as far as the altitude, from your perspective as a player, does that impact things at all? Or is that more just like a mental thing.
It's funny. I was talking to my friends about this. It never really affected me, whether it was Utah or Colorado. Me personally, I never was affected by the altitude, but I know people that really struggled with it. Like they really were short of breath, and just like their lungs got shrunk. So I know it affects everybody differently, but it definitely does affect some people.
Yeah, we actually had a question about that from Roger, who said, I was expecting a second half fall off performance playing at Mile High in Colorado, not making excuses, but do coaches in college and pro watch the number of reps in elevation?
Yeah, especially now with all the new technology and ways they can truly count reps and really keep a measurement on your breathing and everything as the game is in progress. So they definitely are counting reps and trying to keep the players' health and safety in mind. So I would definitely say that is something that is doable, and teams are doing that.
It's interesting because on the plane ride over, I was actually, my seatmate on the plane was one of USC's sports science people. And I was basically like, tell me about what the altitude does. It was probably poor guy is like, let me sit on this flight. But he was basically saying like you subtract between 10 to 30 seconds off of your time, like your mile time or something. I'm totally botching this, and I apologize to people who do sports science because I'm not the one to represent you guys right now. But he was saying like you actually can subtract a certain amount of seconds off of what you normally do because of the altitude. And like he said all the calculations they do based on per like 1,000 feet. Yeah, it was pretty interesting, but that's all I have to offer on that front. I don't really have any of the science, so I apologize for that part. But I want to get into one of the things you tweeted on, I believe, Sunday, Dion. You said, after watching the game, man, we miss Max Williams on the back end big time, and Bryson Shaw was absolutely correct. The players let Alex Grinch down big time yesterday, and that alludes to multiple things. One, it was a surprise to me on Saturday to see Max Williams not suited up for USC. That's definitely something that we were not expecting heading into Colorado. So Bryson Shaw got the start there, and then Bryson Shaw was pretty vocal after the game. He talked about how defensive coordinator Alex Grinch is putting the players in the right position. It's the players themselves that are letting Grinch down and letting the team down. So I'm just curious, Dion, from your point of view as a former player, what motivates a guy to say that directly after the game? Like what motivates? And Bryson Shaw is usually very positive and like kind of, I don't want to say vanilla, but very, by the book and what he says, but he was pretty passionate Saturday. So I was just curious from your perspective, what would motivate someone to do that?
For someone in his shoes, who's generally someone that comes through and is pretty solid on executing the game plan, he had a rougher night on Saturday, so I'm pretty sure that's why he was passionate about his response, that he was in position to make plays and he didn't make the plays that he was in position to make. So he was pretty much just taking responsibility for what he probably thought was a performance he put out that wasn't up to his normal standards. So he wanted to be sure that no one's trying to blame it on the DC, that Coach Grinch had guys scheme to be in the right place. But, it's one thing to tell a guy where to go, and it's another thing for that guy to get the ball carrier down or that guy to break up a pass. The coach can't do that. And as a player, they understand that. And it's another thing when guys are just running free. Like, guys are not in position to make a play. Like, we had a ton of missed tackles because guys are in position to make those tackles, but they're missing them. You got to be in position to miss a tackle, so it'd be different if guys were just running untouched. Like that's a schematic thing more so than our issue on Saturday was just players just executing and winning their one-on-one matchups. And so I completely understand why he was so passionate, and that's probably the reason why, because he felt that he took some blame in that.
Yeah. So overall, what was your assessment of the defensive performance? What changed as the game progressed?
I think my assessment was I was disappointed, to be honest with you, mainly because it wasn't a schematic thing. Like as a fan, as a former defensive player, you want to be able to blame coaches. I wasn't given the tools to be successful, but when you are put in the right place. You know, they are telling you to do the right things, and then you're getting beat. Like, you're not making plays that you believe you can make. It's frustrating. So it was frustrating to watch because guys were getting beat. You know, missing a tackle and guy running 60 yards untouched. You know, like we're missing tackles, not even like we're missing the guy completely. So it was just, you know, I feel like a one-off effort. Like, I feel like that hasn't been the effort that our defense has been putting forth so far this year. So I just feel like it was just a situation that just got out of control, and they couldn't get their feet back under them. So, but it wasn't that Colorado was matriculating the ball down the field. They had a number of explosive plays, and it was just plays that just haven't been happening to the defense yet. So you would think we can tackle a guy that catches a hitch, you know, that tackle a guy that catches an out, you know, not pass interference a guy on a deep ball or stop him from catching that ball. Like, even if we are going to pass interference from, like, tackle him, like, just things like that. Like, we gave up a number of explosive plays. It's hard to win. There's a statistic, like, if you give up, I don't know if it's 3 or 5, but if you give up that number of explosive plays, your chances of winning go down dramatically. And we gave up a number of explosive plays in the passing game specifically. Like, not people running wide open, like, not, you know, people looking lost, but just us not winning that rep. And unfortunately, it happened a number of times on Saturday. So hopefully it can be a different narrative going forward.
In that sense, what did you make of the corner play on Saturday? And, like, have you seen it progress from game 1 to game 5? It's been interesting because I believe Christian Roland Wallace got the start over Sierra Wright, and Damani was opposite of him. What did you make of one, the rotation, but also how they played on Saturday?
I thought Christian Wallace played good. I feel like he had the interception early on in the game. He wasn't playing like he wasn't confident. I feel like like Domani especially, he just didn't feel like I didn't feel the confidence through the screen. And at corner, that's a position where confidence is truly everything. Like, confidence is more important than your athletic ability, because if you're super athletically gifted but you don't really believe you can do the things you need to do or make the plays, then truthfully you're not going to make them, because that guy that's at receiver or running back, whoever your opposing offender is, they're believing in themselves that they can do special things. So it's just really about that confidence. I feel like we were lacking that on the outside, like, guys not believing what they're seeing. So when I say that, our game plan especially at corner, it should have been to sit on things early, because we all know that CU's O-line wasn't great, so Shedeur wasn't going to have a lot of time. So I shouldn't have been worried about being run by, because he shouldn't have 3-4 seconds to sit back there to really put a ball 40-50 yards down the field. So all the hitches you saw being caught, like quick slants, like all that short game, I feel like we should have been a lot more disruptive on that, because coming into the game, it should have been common knowledge that was going to be their game plan. Like, they tried to go down the field on Oregon and realized, okay, our O-line really can't hold up against this level of competition. So I would have figured that they were going to come in with Shedeur getting the ball out of his hands fast. And I feel like our DBs weren't reacting like they were believing what they were seeing. Like, they didn't know if it was going to be a hitch and go, like, or a slant go. Like, they weren't just breaking on the ball, being disruptive. And that's how they were really able to accumulate a lot of their yards, excluding the explosive plays down the field. But it's really just about that confidence and believing what you're seeing, so you can react and react as fast as possible, because all it takes is being a half second late at cornerback and you're beat.
Yeah. It's interesting because from my perspective, I don't really know how to judge it fairly, in the sense of watching the game on Saturday. You could highlight certain plays that were like, that was a one-person mess up. If you fix that, you have a better overall performance. Like, how much of that can you write off as, oh, that's correctable, that could be fixed, versus this is a systemic problem that explosive plays are happening? Like, am I being too fair or too lax? I don't know how to really read that in that sense.
To be honest, because I've been in that position, like when I'm really watching the tape, I can see like, oh man, this guy, I feel like he may not know that the ball is supposed to be turned back to him right there. So he overruns the play thinking that he's supposed to turn the ball back, even though it's being turned back to him. So now there's a hole, you know what I mean, for a explosive run. I saw that happen a number of times. Guys not understand the threat to their gap. It's a specific play, which I thought was one of the game-changing plays, is 3rd and 1. And, you know, Colorado's driving, I believe, is to get the second half touchdowns. 3rd and 1. The running back's offset to Jalen Smith. Jalen's at nickel, even though he played safety majority of the game, and Shaw played the nickel. But Jalen's at nickel, and the back's to him, and the tight end, he's offset away from him. So with that understood, and he's in the apex. When I say apex, it's the receivers are out wide to him, so he has to split the number 2 receiver, the nearest receiver, to the line and the tackle. So that's what we call an apex, when you're right in the middle, right there, and he has that B gap to him. So my threat with the back to me, like, it can't be run to me because the back is to me. So in shotgun, the running back is going to cross the quarterback's face, if that makes sense. Like, he's not the running back. Quarterback isn't going to open to the running back and hand him off the ball. It just doesn't work like that schematically. So you got to understand where my threat is. So if it's run away, I have that B gap. But if the guard pulls, I have to get over the top because my B gap has now moved. Like, and it's just little things like that I feel like they're not really honed in on, because they're not putting themselves in position to handle that threat. Like, you have to understand what your weakness is in your alignment, in the scheme that you're playing, so you can cheat, you know, to help yourself when you're in a position that has you exposed a little bit, you know. So, but if you don't really know what that weakness is, like how you can be exposed in that alignment, you don't know how to put yourself in a better position where you can cheat a little bit to the right or to the left based off the alignment of the running back in the formation, based off if the slot is on the ball or off the ball. So it's things like that's putting them a step behind, and it's like how they were able to create that 3rd and 1, where we have guys that like run into where the ball carrier is trying to go instead of going to the ball carrier. And that's how we're missing tackles, you know, flying by guys, arm tackles, missing like that. So it's simple, like football stuff that they really got to hone in on if they want to be a great defense, because every defense has a weakness, and you have to understand that weakness to cover it up. But if you don't know the weakness of your defense, it can be exploited because you don't even know where you can be exploited. You know, you just thinking, oh, this defense can work against anything. That's not the case. Like, you can make every defense work against any call, but you have to understand the defense. Oh, we're weak against this formation. Oh, we're weak against this formation. I need to be here. I need to be 2 yards to the right, 2 yards to the left, things like that. So that's definitely the next step for our defense, so they can give themselves a better chance to make plays.
Where does that start? Is that in the film room or is that on the practice field?
That's in a film room, really. And me personally, I wasn't a good practice player. So it's funny because obviously I'm named after Deion Sanders, so I'm a Prime fan. And I watched their videos after the game and whatnot. And people are like, oh, how come they weren't playing these players? Like, they had a corner who everybody was asking about why he ain't playing. And that receiver who never had a catch before the game.
Yeah.
In the locker room, he said, man, you practice like, you know, but you play like a man. You play like a man. Like, and that's what you learn at the next level. Like, this is not high school. If you don't show it in between the week, you're not going to get that opportunity to show it on game day. So it's hard to really set yourself up for success, or for the coach to believe that you're going to succeed on Saturday if you're not putting the work in during the week. So that's why I say it starts on the practice field and in the film room. You got to see things on tape and try it in practice. You know, like, oh, I see this call could stress us in this defense, So let me see if I align at 10 yards instead of 12 yards or 12 yards instead of 14 yards. Like if it puts me in a better position to play the play I know that could work against our defense, to cover up the weakness of the defense. So if you're not really picking out plays, really scheming, studying your opponent, and you're just playing whatever the coach calls, like you're not giving yourself the best opportunity to make the most plays, put yourself in position to make not even extraordinary plays, just ordinary plays. You take with alignment, you can make an ordinary play an extraordinary play. And that's not what you don't want to make it harder on yourself just because you 1 yard to the left and you should be to the right, things like that. So it's definitely a film room thing. And it's not, coaches only have so much time with the players. People don't understand that. These aren't professional athletes. They can't spend 100 hours with them. It's like 20 hours or something like that they can on the books really be watching tape, practicing and all that. So it's really, the onus is really on the player to take that next step, especially with film study, watching tape at home, coming in, watching it after class, things like that. So hopefully guys want to get better. And I feel like that's really where it'll start for them, in the film room and on the practice field.
No, that makes sense. I didn't know you weren't a good practice player.
I was not until Coach Clancy came, and he really emphasized that, like, at the next level, you'll never get on the field practicing the way I practice. Like, because obviously I knew I can make plays in the game. So I just...
Oh, so this was by choice.
It was by choice. Like, and I wasn't a good practice player in high school because I was better than a lot of people I was playing. I never really had to practice hard. I would just turn it on game day. And,
Got it.
You can't do that. So I was trying to prepare for the next level. So I really tried to hone in on practicing, trying to make every practice rep a game rep, like putting myself in different positions, choosing plays that I want to remember so I can recognize them in the game, and trying to recognize formations, alignments, and things like that, trying to take it to the next level.
See, it's interesting you mentioned that because I had asked Lincoln Riley after the game about Dejon Benton, who's a guy who was actually recruited in the Clay Helton era, because he was pretty active in the game. And I was like, you know what, this is a guy we don't usually talk about. Like, I just wanted to see, how did you think he did? And Lincoln had a full 1 minute answer saying how he didn't think Dejon was going to make it. He thought he wouldn't be able to like handle the rigorous new culture that USC and Lincoln Riley had put in place. And so he was saying that he was basically proud of him for stepping up and a result of those tough conversations, which reminded me of this because of what Clancy said to you when you were in practice. But I just thought it was interesting. Like, is this something where you need to have those heart-to-heart conversations with players where you're like, this is not working on game day? Like, we need to have more X, Y, and Z from you going forward. Like, is that something that is a product of this game, or do you not address it like that?
Definitely, and it's a two-way street. Like, there needs to be no ego in the room, because sometimes a coach could really think that a play is whatever scheme they have is best against a certain play, and as a player out there executing the scheme, you should feel confident enough to provide your opinion. Like, coach, I think this play will work better in this situation because I feel I may not be able to get over the center if the guard pulls. Like, if I'm in this alignment in this defense, or if I'm worried about this pass responsibility is putting too much stress on the run responsibility in this call. So it needs to go both ways, but obviously there has to be a certain level of understanding of the defense and the scheme in order for it to be a two-way street like that. So right now it's probably more so of a one-way street. Guys need to have those conversations, and you got to have true expectations and of what the player is aspiring to be, what they want to be as a college player if they have pro aspirations, and you approach every player differently. You don't want to. You're not coaching a player who's aspiring just to be a USC Trojan the same as a guy that's aspiring to be a first-round pick. Obviously, you're going to demand more of the guy who has bigger aspirations, because obviously it means more to him. So the coaches really got to hone in on how much does it mean to certain players, and try to figure out how to get the best out of them, what they need to do more so, if it's more film work, explaining things on tape, or drawing it on the whiteboard or more walkthroughs, like understanding how guys learn the best individually. Like it's not a collective thing because everybody's going to learn differently. So that's why you really got to have a pulse, really have an understanding of the guys in the room so you can get the most out of them.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's with anything when it comes to learning and teaching.
Very
Even
true.
with my
very, very true. And that's all a coach is as a teacher. How good of a teacher you are, because I'm trying to teach you something so well that you feel like you known it as long as I've known it. You know, that's really what it is. Because no player knows the defense until it's taught to them by the coach, you know, and the coach tells you how they want you to align, how they want you to play it, what you're looking for. So, but it's also about the learner as well. Like if you're teaching me a certain way and I learn better a different way and that's not communicated, it's always going to be that disconnect. So got to have that open line of communication so, you know, everybody can win.
Mm-hmm. I have a ton more questions for you, Dion, but we have a ton of questions from our listeners for you. So I'm just going to make sure that their voices are heard. So before we dive into questions, just want to give a thanks to Audi. What if there's a portal to the future? Enter the fully electric Audi Q4 e-tron with an advanced touchscreen infotainment system. Audi, the future awaits. And at Ralph's, everyone wins when it comes to saving big, because when you order online through the Ralph's app, you get the same great prices, deals, and rewards on pickup or delivery that you do in store. So no matter how you shop, you always save big at Ralph's. Ralph's, fresh for everyone. The first question I want to get to for you, Dion, and I know you're smirking at my ad read.
No, you're killing it. You're killing it.
No, I'm going through it. The sickness. I'm just gonna do this one take. First question I want to give to you, thank you, is from Sam. He said Lincoln Riley said after the game the issues are different than last year on defense. Does Dion agree?
I agree. For one, the strength of our defense this year was the weakness of our defense last year. So the makeup of our defense is completely different. Like it's more of an experience and confidence thing where so is a execution and understanding where guys are supposed to be. Last year we had people just running free, like in passing game and the run game, guys would go 20, 25 yards without being touched. And that's definitely not the issue this year. It's more so of just being detailed, you know, not missing tackles, finishing plays. Guys are in positions to make plays. It's just they're not. Well, Saturday specifically, they didn't make them. I mean, they've been making them this year, which obviously why everybody's talking about they're seeing improvement in the defense. So it's just about them, you know, showing up week in and week out and putting their best foot forward. But I definitely don't see any true similarities between the defense of last year and this year besides the missed tackle episode the past 2 weeks. But that's something that we can get cleaned up.
Sam also said, does it actually matter if they are different or not if the defense is still continuing to struggle?
Now, that's a great question. That's actually a great question, because I guess it doesn't matter if you're getting the same result in the end if it's happening a different way, but I rather the front not be the issue. Like
it feels like it's more correctable this year than it is last year.
Yes, I felt like we could not get it corrected because we just didn't have the guys last year to hold up front and to execute what Coach Grins was trying to do. So you gotta, every great or just good defense starts with a good front four, and we have that plethora of guys. You know, we got about 6 or 7, maybe even 8 guys that can go out there and get the job done up front. So it's you know, it's a double-edged sword, I guess, but I think this year we truly could get it taken care of. And I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, we're not going to turn into an elite defense. Like recruiting and just time is going to help us really turn over that leaf. But we can be a serviceable defense, a solid defense, a respectable defense, and that's what truthfully the goal should be with the type of offense that we have. So I think that's definitely achievable. Guys just have to hone in and keep believing. Let's not forget we were up 35-14. You know, these are, 18 to 22, 23-year-olds. You get up that big, they thinking about what we doing after the game, and then you blink your eye, now you only up by 14, 10, and then you got to really try and turn it on. And I feel like that's what happened this week. So I would really just leave it at that.
Los headquarters said, rewatching the game, it seemed like our biggest issues on defense were safety play and not setting the edge. Does Dion agree with that?
I wouldn't say safety play. Shaw had a tough couple of plays. I mean, he got beat on the post, and then on the scramble drill, Shedeur fitted in there in the end zone, but it wasn't like our safeties were just nowhere to be found all game. So I wouldn't agree with that aspect. But what was the other part of the question?
He wanted to know not setting the edge, if that was the other issue.
So it wasn't that we weren't setting the edge. We're just losing our rush integrity. Like, we have to squeeze the pocket. Everybody just can't be rushing to get a sack. Everyone has to be tied on a string. If I'm rushing the outside, you can't run the hoop too, because then that leaves the middle open. So, like, everybody they just have to be tied on a string. And I felt like guys were just pressing on Saturday trying to make a play. Obviously, seeing how things were going, and that was giving Shedeur rush lanes, giving him the ability to step up in the pocket and run for, however many yards per rush he was able to get. But I don't think it was really like a setting the edge thing. It was just, rush lane integrity. We gave up some open lanes to Shedeur, and he was able to take advantage of it.
That's basically what Lincoln Riley said after the game as well. SoCal Manny said, the first half was great on both sides of the ball. What happened in the second half? Why can't we make adjustments on defense? I don't feel like this was an adjustment issue.
It
correct?
was not an adjustment issue. It wasn't. It truly wasn't. I know a lot of people be thinking I just be trying to cover for Grinch and things like that. But, like, if you're really watching it, is not an adjustment issue. Just guys not making plays that they normally have been making this year. I mean, the little freshman receiver from Colorado, he catches a hitch. I mean, Domani misses the tackle. He doesn't even touch him. He's off for 64 yards. I mean, how many times is Domani going to whiff on a tackle and a hitch? Not often. I feel like just all the ordinary plays that our players normally make, they just didn't make them on Saturday, and Colorado turned them into extraordinary plays. A 5-yard hitch, and they turned into a 64-yard gain. Catch a little 5-yard out, turned into a 50-yard gain. It just was a perfect storm, really, that we weren't able to get a grasp of and really slow down. Like, everybody was just scrambling, really in disbelief. That's how I felt, that the team, not in panic mode, but just in disbelief mode. Like, this can't be happening to us. And I feel like that's how plays were able to be made.
Yeah. It was also, and Riley said this as well too, but it's a credit to Colorado's fans too. I was surprised that they didn't leave. They were in it for the whole game.
It major credit to Colorado to make an effort to make a comeback like that.
Yeah.
That it says a lot about them, because we were up big, and I don't think they ever truly thought they could come back and win the game, probably until they was kicking that onside kick at the end, like, oh snap, maybe an actual chance that we can do this. And they were in it. Great environment. It was a great experience for the team. What an experience. They got to go up there. It was, stars out. I had an experience like that. We played in Oregon in 2011. They had everybody, LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony. It literally everybody signed by Nike that was in the NBA. They was at the game. On the sidelines, like, we warming up. They're like, hey, yo, hey, this, that. And a lot of them was obviously SC fans. So it's, to have that experience, that they're going to remember that experience, even though it didn't end the way that they would have liked. But the atmosphere and all the hype and all that, they're going to remember that for the rest of their lives. So, I'm thankful that the Colorado fans didn't leave. And, they were able to be a part of a memorable experience for them as well. Just, hey, we got out of there with the dub. So it's it all ends well.
It's wild because, like, obviously I wasn't a part of the Pete Carroll era, but I was pregame. I was like, "Is that CC Sabathia? Like, is that Paul Pierce?" I was like,
and I mean that's what it's about. Like, cause these kids are kind of young. I ain't gonna lie. So like, I know I grew up watching that with Coach.
Yeah,
Carroll
I was pretty excited.
I'm not sure what they saw. Yeah, so I mean, it was great for them. Like I said, to be in that type of atmosphere. Like all eyes were on them, and they haven't always been in that position. Obviously, because we in the Pac-12, be playing after dark and all these weird slots. So that was a forecasting note, eye into what our future is going to be like, because it's going to be a lot more big noon kickoffs. You know, kicking off that first slot or the second slot. Not really many, you know, 7:30 p.m. Pacific Coast time kickoff. So. Yeah, it was good for them to get that experience in. I'm sure that played a part too, because I saw y'all videos. Y'all was up at like 6, 7 going to the stadium, like, or maybe even, and that's brutal. Like, I know that definitely played a part.
So I was up at 4 starting to get ready, and at 4:30 I started to hear whistles and Benny Wiley, the head strength and conditioning coach, and I was like, am I hallucinating? Like, is this early? But they were in the lobby doing walkthroughs at 4:30 in the morning, and I was like, this is just brutal. Nah. And we left Friday super early in the morning. I was at the airport at 5:30 a.m. on Friday. So it was just back to back super early wake up calls. So I was struggling. So I can only imagine when you're actually doing like legit exercise.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm surprised they came out on like as hot as they did. I was expecting a slow start because of the early kickoff and just a new routine that none of them have been a part of before. None of them have kicked off at noon Eastern before. So besides Caleb or guys that came from OU, because in the Big 12 they do it. So which I'm glad we had Coach Riley. You know what I mean? He had the game plan on how to prepare for that type of kickoff and get the guys ready, which is probably why you saw them come out and execute and firing on all cylinders. Yeah.
This is like a pointless question preface, but in your opinion, would you prefer a team to start off strong and then kind of fade in the second half, or not start off well but then find its footing towards the end of the game? Like, is there a lesser evil?
Nah, start off strong for sure. Cause then we know, like, all right, what at least what we need to protect, or like we can like elongate drives, and like I was saying, you can go in a 4-minute mode, really try and just get out there, get out of there with a win. Like, we're not trying to score anymore. We're just trying to run the clock, gain a couple first downs. We're really just running the clock, trying to end the game. And you can't get in that position if you're playing catch up. You really giving the opposing team the opportunity to really milk the game and minimize your possessions and your chances to make a comeback. So definitely rather be up and up big and be trying to prevent a comeback than be down and trying to come back for sure any day.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. We got a question from Judy, who said, Dion, what do you make of the linebacker rotation?
I'm not sure. I personally, when I was a player, I was not a fan of rotating, but I understand that truthfully, not many of them have separated themselves from each other. So to be fair, I guess you have to give guys opportunities to perform, but I don't really know.
We had a question from Ricky, who said, if you were the defensive coordinator, Dion, how would you approach Monday's film session?
Well, for one, I would be honest with them that we didn't finish the game like, you know, a championship team would finish off game, off a lesser opponent. You know, we had our foot on their throat and we pretty much helped them up and made them a drink, so to speak. Like, it should be the complete opposite. And but you gotta also emphasize that it wasn't just a terrible performance. Like, there was good tape. It was reps that they could learn from and build off of. Like I said, we were up like 3 scores, so the defense they had a lot of good but a lot of bad as well. So you gotta address both accordingly. And I wouldn't use it as like a bashing session. You know, like, it has to be you always got to be building those young guys up, like, because we're young in positions that we are going to depend on, like corner and specifically like corner. And it's really just about keeping young guys' confidence high. So you got to really read the room and understand the guys you have in the room and who responds to what type of coaching, and, what will get a guy to, get it going, or what's going to get a guy to shut down. You don't want guys shutting down, or feeling like they're being picked on or called out, but you also got to hold them accountable. So it's a fine line, man. It's everybody, can be a DC on Twitter, but it's a lot more than X's and O's to really get somebody to go out there and execute what you want them to do. You can take a guy that really just believes in what you're telling them, and he's just a high effort guy, and he'll go out there and make some plays in positions he don't even know he's supposed to be in, just because you telling them where to be. He believe in you telling them the right thing, and he gonna go 110%. Whereas you got a guy that really understands what the scheme, and he's challenging what you're saying. Like, you're telling me to do this, but I think I should do this. So it goes both ways. It's really just about motivating the player. Like, how motivated can you get the player to be so they'll run through a wall for you. So hopefully that'll be the case. That's what comes out of Monday, that the guys feel like the coaches are on their side, and that they're in this together, and they right the ship.
It's interesting, Dion, because I feel like you and I could talk about this for a while, but at the end of the day, like, there's not too many ways you can slice this game. Like, it just kind of seems like it is what it is. Like, I'm just curious from your point of view, what would you say to USC fans? Like, if USC fans are sitting on your therapist couch, Dion, and you're the football therapist, what are you saying to them after this game?
I would say, first, don't make a win feel like a loss. That's when you're making being a fan, like, not fun. Like, you got to be able to enjoy the wins no matter how they come, because we haven't always been in this position where we're expected to win every game. So we it's about us surviving and advancing in college football, and we were able to do that on Saturday. Yeah, it wasn't the finish that everyone hoped, but we won. And let's not, get on the internet and do all the bash and fire the coach. This player sucks, this and that. Like, that doesn't help anybody. And we're not going to fire Grinch because you're saying to fire Grinch. So why even, put that negative energy out there? Like, just, hey, we won. You can obviously critique the team, but let's be positive, and let's, root not boys, but young men on to right the ship, make the necessary adjustments. So, maybe as a fan, you're not breathing as heavy towards the end of a game that you felt that was well in your grasp early on. So that would be my advice, man, to allow yourself to continue enjoying simple things like winning a game. Like, don't come away from a win complaining like we lost. Like, we won. It obviously, every win is different, but it's all about getting the win. So, hey, we on to the next week, and hoping that the finish is much more championship-like against Arizona than it was against Colorado.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because Sean Cody actually asked Lincoln Riley a similar topic, his question on Trojans Live, and he said, Riley said it's interesting because there's so few places like USC where you're a blue blood and the expectations are so high. And he kind of alluded to the fact that, you can make a win seem like a loss. And he was like, what do you think they're doing over at Athens? They're picking them apart, and they're the former national championship. They've won how many games in a row? It's interesting, because I feel like sometimes, and I'm as guilty of this as anyone else, you kind of get into video game mode is what I call it, where it's like you lose the fact that it's a game, and to do the cliche, you play every Saturday because you don't know exactly what's going to happen. It's interesting kind of the nuance you have to bring to being a fan and to watching college football, because if we knew the expected outcome, why are we playing the game? You know what I mean? It's interesting.
Very true. You along for the ride, and that's why we love college football, because there are going to be them peaks and valleys, unlike the NFL, where, it's more cut and dry. Like, hey, this team's better than that team. It's not often people get upset or like someone just does something that was unthinkable. Whereas in college football, I mean, that's what makes college football great. The stories and the tradition and just the unthinkable happening often. So you gotta just, hey, keep the purity of being a college football fan and, just keep it fun. You can be a die-hard fan or whatever you want to call it, but just keep it fun, man. We're 5-0. It's been a while since we've been in the position to put back 2 dominating seasons back to back like we're in a position to do this year. So let's enjoy the ride. I mean, we got a superstar on our hands. Don't know how long he's gonna be here. So every Saturday we see 13 on the field. It's a good day to be a fan of the Trojan and Cardinal and Gold. So as long as we come out with a W, I say everybody keep a smile on their face and let's prepare for the next week.
To your point, Dion, this is the first time that USC is 5-0 in back-to-back seasons since 2005 and 2006.
See,
so
that's what I'm talking about.
Hasn't happened in a while for USC. So enjoy the ride, I think is what we're saying.
Yep,
exactly. Alrighty, Dion. Any final thoughts before we wrap this one up? Again, thank you so much for being flexible and recording on a Monday night.
Final thoughts. Hey, 5-0. Let's hope we 6-0, and I don't want to look too far down the line, but we got a big one coming up. So hopefully this week, we put our best foot forward so we can roll into that big one the following week with a lot of momentum behind us.
Alrighty. Awesome as always, Dion. Appreciate your analysis. That's going to wrap it up for tonight's episode. That's Dion. I'm Keely. We'll be back on Wednesday with Cody Kessler, so stay tuned.